Hello, hello. Happy Inspire Thursday. I'm Eileen Frankel from YEI, and you are here at our Inspire virtual session. It's my pleasure to see everyone today and give you a short introduction, but we're going to jump right in quickly. We have an amazing 3 days of Inspire content and programming, but let's jump right in today. Our session today will be 90 minutes, and I promise you it's going to be fun. It's going to be interactive. As you can see, we're in great hands with the technology and the fun visuals. Our theme today is very timely: artificial intelligence. Can't go very far without reading and hearing about AI and how it's disrupting every industry, including education. Our goal is to remove some of the mystery surrounding AI and to help you see how AI can help you as an educator and how AI can help your students, particularly as they learn about entrepreneurship. Our workshop leader and facilitator for today is Justin Wilcox, founder of teachingentrepreneur.org. We at YEI have been following Justin for many years. He's a well-known and innovative curriculum designer and facilitator. I had the pleasure of taking his course last spring, and it was fantastic. So without any further delay, welcome, Justin.
Thank you so much, Eileen. It's really great to be with you all here today, and I'm so excited to talk about our session today, AI Demystified, a guide for entrepreneurship educators. My name is Justin Wilcox. I'll tell you a little bit about myself later, but more importantly, I want to hear what's going on for you all. I want to know, how are you feeling about AI and entrepreneurship, AI and education? And the way I want to ask this question to you is using a technique called chat storming. So if you haven't seen this before, it's a really useful technique if you say you find yourself teaching in an online Zoom session, maybe because of some global pandemic. So I want to invite you to try this technique out with your students if you find yourself sort of in the position that I'm in now, because it's a great way to foster online discussion and engagement. And there are really just 3 rules to using a chat storm. The first is, don't hit enter until I tell you to. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to have you type it into the chat, but I'm going to say, don't hit enter until I tell you to. Okay, so step number 2, type your answer into the chat. So what I want you to do is I want you to write into the chat, in the Zoom chat, how are you feeling about AI and education? Anxious, worried, excited, whatever you're feeling, go ahead and type it into the chat. But remember, don't hit enter until I tell you to. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to give you 30 seconds, write out your answer, and then I'll be back. A little bit louder now, 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 a little bit louder now. Hey, 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 hey. All right, I can see some folks. We got most folks who didn't hit enter. So congratulations, most of you have found out the key to a chat storm. So the deal is that don't hit enter. We almost got everyone. The goal of the chat storm is that you want your students to be able to feel safe and encouraged to interact with each other. And by having everyone wait and send all their messages in at the same time, we create some anonymity and some safety here. So what I want to do now is I'm going to count down, and when I say the magic word, then we're all going to hit that button together, and you'll see the chat flood with different responses. So here we go. In 3, 2, 1, everyone hit enter for me, and boom, that's exactly what we're looking for. So we're going to see You see Zoom chat is all filled with messages, and I'm just going to go through and read some of these. Anxious, uninformed, excited, intrigued, driven, depends, amazed but worried too. So these are all awesome responses. Thank you so much for participating. That helps me understand exactly where we're coming from, and I'm not shocked. So when I've done this before, there's often a mix of excitement and anxiety about artificial intelligence. And that's really normal, because if we think about disruptive technology, it's got the concept of disruption built in. It can make us feel uncomfortable. So I'm going to show you some quotes that may resonate. It's dangerous and will never be practical. A novelty or a fad. Has too many shortcomings to seriously be considered. So these are all quotes that would obviously make a lot of sense if someone said them about AI, but it turns out they're not about AI. These are quotes about disruptive technologies we now all take for granted. So if I show you some larger context for these quotes, if God had intended for us to fly, he would have given us wings. It's dangerous and will never be practical. What's most interesting about this quote is who said it. It's the father of Orville and Wilbur Wright. I predict that the horse will be with us for centuries. The automobile is a novelty, a fad. This is a quote from United States President William McKinley. And then the telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a means of communication. This is the president of the largest telegram company in the United States, president of Western Union. So I want to acknowledge that there are some things to be wary of about AI, and we'll talk about those. But I want this session to also help illuminate the benefits and the power of AI, so that you don't end up on someone's slide deck in 50 years talking about how bad AI was, when it turns out it can be a really empowering technology, both for you and your students. So let's dive into it, and let's start talking about how AI can help you as educators. And to do that, I'm actually going to launch a poll here. So you'll see a poll come up inside Zoom. And go ahead and answer those questions for me. You'll see there'll be about 4 questions in there. Answer those for me. Again, I'll give you 30 seconds or so to fill those out, and that will determine kind of what we're going to do next.
Justin, you're muted.
Thanks so much. Thanks for the heads up. Okay, so thanks for answering those questions for me. I'm going to share the results so we can all look at them together. And it looks like the topic we're most interested in is entrepreneurship. Most of us are in the 9th through 12th grade range. I teach classes around 45 minutes is the most significant one. And then we're looking for interactive lessons is the #1 priority. Okay, so let's take a look and see to what extent AI can help us with this. So I'm inside ChatGPT. If you haven't gotten a chance to play with ChatGPT yet, don't worry, you will. We're going to give you a resource that has links to all this. And if you can't access it from your school computer at the moment, you can try it on a different network. Either try on a mobile phone or try when you get home. You should be able to. But let's just start off with something easy. So if I said, give me a course outline for an entrepreneurship class. So I'm using ChatGPT 3.5. It's the free version that everyone has access to. And you can see it's already starting to spit out a bunch of information for me. So I won't read this whole thing. I am gonna give you the transcript though, so you can go take a look at it. But you can see it's given us 15 weeks. It's talking about different concepts that we can cover each week, which is great. So it's a good starting point. And one of the things to know about AI is that at this point, it's a combination of an art and a science. You'll want to get used to refining your prompts when you ask it for things. So in this case, maybe I'll say, modify the outline to be appropriate for an 11th grade high school class and tell me what you've changed. Okay, so now it's going to go and it is conversational, so I don't have to repeat my original instructions again. It knows what I've already asked it, and it's going to go make some modifications here. And then let's see what it's going to do differently. Course description. Here's a modified version for 11th grade. I've made adjustments to make it more age appropriate and align with the educational level of high school students. Okay, so it's made some adjustments to it. I'm not gonna go over every single one of these things, but you can see how we can kind of refine our prompts over time.
Teachers that
now, what I want to do next is I want to get into a little more detail. Like we can get super granular here. So I can say, give me a detailed lesson plan for the first class session, which will be 45 minutes long and include an interactive exercise and a formative assessment. Yeah, well, let's try that. We'll start with that and we'll see what comes up. Again, I'm going to give you all of these prompts, so you don't need to worry about writing them down. I'm just kind of giving you a sense of what's available and what sort of things we can ask for here. Okay, so now we're getting into the weeds here. So we're getting really detailed. We're getting minute by minute breakdown, including what materials we should have available. We want sticky notes, a whiteboards, and visual aids. We're going to do a brief introduction. We'll do a warm-up activity. We're going to write key phrases on the whiteboard, talk about some content. Let's see, do an entrepreneurial trait self-assessment. So this is really interesting. So it wants you to distribute the entrepreneurial trait self-assessment handout, which it hasn't told us what that is, but it's really easy. I can say, tell me exactly what should be in the entrepreneurial traits self-assessment handout. And then it will go fill in the blanks for you. So you can keep refining your prompts and you can get really specific here. So now it's going to give me an actual sort of a format for a document here that I can create in Word or go distribute to my students. Now, just a heads up, if you've got the 4.0 level of ChatGPT, you can actually have it generate documents for you. So I could actually have it generate that for me. But for right now, we'll just focus on the free functionality. Okay, so great. So we've gotten super detailed in terms of like lesson plans. We talked about sort of refining our prompts, but let's get into the biggest request was for the interactive lessons. So let's say, give me a detailed lesson plan for an interactive lesson to teach. Let's see, one of the most common and difficult topics is revenue modeling. Anything having to do with finance can be tricky. That includes physical activity. So we'll go down here. Okay, so here we've got lemonade stand activity, theoretical discussion, create a revenue model for a simple business, understanding the factors affecting revenue and apply this knowledge to the real world. So it looks like it's doing a lemonade stand. It's forgotten that we're at 45 minutes, so I can say revise the lesson to be 45 minutes. And then I'll go down to the bottom here, and then it will make the updates as necessary. So I'm going to share this with you so you can go take a look at this and you can sort of read through it in more detail. But then I'm going to unlock the keys to the kingdom.
Will this be in the PowerPoint?
Yeah, so you're going to get everything you're going to need, you're going to have access to after the session. Now, and I should mention, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. We're going to take everyone's questions and then we'll answer them at the end. If anything's like horrifically like on fire, like, you know, it looks like I'm talking and you can't hear me, feel free to unmute. Otherwise, just throw all your questions inside the chat. That'll be sort of the most organized way for us to get to everything. Okay, so that's just a tour of some of the things you can do with ChatGPT. Now, I want you all to have a turn to play with this stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a document that's going to outline everything that I showed you plus way, way more. So inside this PDF document, it's going to be a link if you want an editable version of this one. So if you want to open up a Google Docs version and make it your own and add your own notes, you can click that link there. But it's going to give you a link to ChatGPT where you can get this. And then it's going to have a bunch of course outline, a bunch of sample prompts for you. So, hey, create a course outline for me, and then insert the course name, how many weeks it is, etc. And then for each of these prompts, it's going to give you an example of how to use it. So there's prompts for course outline, lesson plans, reflective assignments, games, etc. And these are all just templates. Like you can change any of these things to do whatever you want. So I'm going to let you play with this document. And then there's going to be some other information in here. You're welcome to look at that other information. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I really encourage you to kind of play around with it and see what you can do for yourself in terms of course prep and AI. So, okay, so we're going to give you the link to that. That should show up here in the chat and you can start playing around with that. And then the way I want to kind of structure this playtime is I want to put you in breakout rooms. And I highly recommend you join because it's going to give you the chance to share best practices with other instructors. And this is going to sort of make it easier for those who don't have a lot of experience with ChatGPT to maybe find someone in your breakout room that does and who can answer some questions about it for you if you run into any trouble. And of course, those who have experience, if you're able and willing to help those who don't have as much experience, that would be great as well. We don't have the bandwidth or number of facilitators to help everyone. So the idea is if we divide into breakout rooms, then we can all help one another. Okay, so like I said, I highly recommend you join if you can. But if you don't want to be on camera right now, if you're not having a good hair day or you simply don't want to be seen, don't worry about joining the breakout rooms. You can just skip it. As you know, as instructors who've been teaching online, it's always easier and better to be interacting with people who have a camera on. So I highly encourage you to turn your camera on when you get into your breakout rooms. If you don't have a stable internet connection, so if you are walking around, if you're driving around, please don't worry about joining the breakout rooms. You'll be just fine. And then finally, if you simply just don't want to participate with other people right now, that's fine. Don't join the breakout rooms. But for everyone else, if you can, I highly recommend you do. So that I know how many breakout rooms to open up, I'm going to put up another poll. If you can fill out that poll for me, it will tell me whether or not exactly how many breakout rooms I should launch. So if you are interested in joining the breakout rooms, please click yes, and that will give me a count. And again, I'll give you 30 seconds or so to click that button if you need help finding it. All right, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you got a chance to play around a little bit. But I'd love to hear your questions. And when I mean hear, I mean read. So if any questions came up during the breakout sessions, throw them in the chat for us and we'll answer them at the end. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear about what you learned, what you played with, what surprised you. But yeah, any questions you have, go ahead and throw them in chat and then we'll get those at the end. In the meantime, I think it's probably time that we do a little introductions. So I'm going to hand it over to Eileen. And Eileen can take us there through the rest of our introductions. And Eileen, you'll probably need to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. I just realized that. So how's everybody feeling? A little more confident? It certainly is more fun and easier when you have your own personal tour guide to AI. So thanks, Justin, for that. At this break, I'm going to just take a few minutes and talk about Young Entrepreneur Institute, and then I'm going to introduce Emily Bean from Yippee, our Enspire event sponsor for the whole 3 days of the conference. As many of you know, at YEI, we believe that every child deserves the chance to learn about and experience entrepreneurship. Our mission is to equip K-12 students with an entrepreneurial mindset and skills for the future by training and supporting K-12 educators and by offering hands-on experiential learning opportunities to students. Youth entrepreneurship education is what we do every day through educator events like this, the Enspire Conference, and through our monthly power hours, and also through student programs like Young Entrepreneur Pitch Challenge, which you'll hear a little bit more about later. We also help educators by connecting them to valuable classroom resources like ChatGPT and other entrepreneurial resources that can build skills and an entrepreneurial mindset. We do the research so your students can benefit. We also work in partnership with lots of great organizations that also share our mission and a belief in youth entrepreneurship education. One of those is Burton D. Morgan Foundation. The Burton D. Morgan Foundation has created the Yippee Exchange platform, which is really transforming the way sponsors provide funding for entrepreneurship education. At YEI, we've collaborated with the Morgan Foundation for more than 15 years, and we're fortunate to have their leadership and entrepreneurial spirit supporting youth-focused endeavors. We're also fortunate to have Yippee as our sponsor for Enspire. Right now, I'm happy to introduce Emily Bean, Director of Youth Entrepreneurship at the Morgan Foundation, and the brains behind the Yippee Exchange platform. Welcome, Emily.
Thanks, Eileen, and thanks for your kind words. We feel very grateful to have been able to partner with YEI for as many years as we have. AI, it's an incredibly valuable tool for teaching entrepreneurship, but it also makes entrepreneurship education critically important in students' academic careers. The career pathways that were available to us when we were entering the workforce are drastically changing, and students must be able to navigate an increasingly complex landscape. To do that, they need constant opportunities to build their entrepreneurial muscles. In every subject and every grade, they need the ability to practice developing innovative solutions to problems, identifying opportunities, communicating with others, presenting their ideas, and adapting to feedback. And we have made it easy for educators to bring these types of experiences to their students. Yippee Exchange is the marketplace for entrepreneurship education grants. It's filled with curated, high-quality resources designed to build student skills and connect students to entrepreneurs. We currently have more than 150 grant opportunities on the site from more than 50 different providers, all with unique perspectives and resources that encourage experiential tinkering. For those not familiar with the process, it's pretty straightforward. You earn points for registering, leaving product reviews, referring other educators, and annually certifying your information. You then use those points to buy grants if there's a sponsor in your area. It's that simple. The link is in the chat to sign up, and you get 500 points right away. That translates to $500 you can spend. And also for attending this conference, you'll get an extra 500 points using the code INSPIRE23, which gives you the equivalent of $1,000 to spend on the site. You will have the opportunity to hear from several Yippee providers at the in-person Enspire event over the next couple of days, but I encourage you to register now so you can begin placing orders for as soon as you feel inspired. And I think I made it within 2 minutes, so thank you, Eileen.
So we're just putting the link back in the chat. So anybody who wants to have that direct link will have that as well. Justin, there was a question, and a couple of them have come up from the beginning about if ChatGPT is blocked in your district. Do you have an alternative recommendation? And is ChatGate, I believe ChatGate, the same or a similar resource?
Yeah, do you want to tackle those questions now, or should we wait until the end? I'm happy to go either way.
Up to you. I just wanted to make sure you saw that because I'm wondering if people are feeling frustrated.
I see. Yeah. So for right now, I would say, okay, a couple things to think about when you think about alternatives. If a large language model tool, a specific tool like ChatGPT, is blocked by your district, I think the first most interesting question is, why is it being blocked? Yes, there are lots of alternatives for ChatGPT, but presumably it's being blocked not just because there's something specific about ChatGPT or OpenAI, it's some concerns about something else. And if it's concerns about like how that data is managed, I can't like recommend that you use an alternative, because that may just be sort of sidestepping what the real intention of the district is in terms of blocking access. Now, as far as whether or not access should be blocked, I would highly recommend that you take what you learn here and show it to the powers that be and talk about how this is an amazing tool, both for you as instructors and for your students, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And it would be akin to blocking use of computers. Like there's no point in putting our head in the sand. But of course, like there may be some valid reasons, and I'll let you in your own communities sort of discuss that. As far as alternatives, yes, there are lots of alternatives. I'm not going to get into those right now because it would take far too long to kind of like understand how to get into each one of those. But just know that all of the prompts that I've given you access to, and all of the sort of general resources we're going to talk about, are applicable in virtually all of the conversational large language model generative AI tools. So whether you use Bard, Google's version, or whether you use Microsoft's version through Bing, like they're all going to be applicable. There's obviously going to be some growing pains in terms of getting everyone access and making sure districts know why this is beneficial. But even if you're going to tinker around at home, you'll be able to use all of these resources. So yeah, if you have any other additional questions, again, feel free to throw them into the chat, and then we'll tackle them there at the end. Eileen, did you want to talk about the pitch challenge at all?
I do want to talk about the pitch challenge. Thank you. So many of you are familiar with the Young Entrepreneur Pitch Challenge. We have it as a free download on our website. And if you have a book, I'm not going to be able to show it on the fun filter I have here. But you can download it and print it and put it into a book. It's a 5-step lesson plan for really the starting point for teaching entrepreneurship and for teaching kids K-12 how to solve problems and how to think of entrepreneurial solutions to problems. And why it's helpful for you is that it teaches a way of thinking and a way of being innovative that's going to help kids for the future. And we all know that memorizing and writing, those kinds of and assessments, the way we do them now, they're changing. So having something as open-ended as the pitch challenge allows kids to develop the critical thinking skills. And using AI with the pitch challenge, it's not cheating. Like our old way of thinking would be to say that it's cheating to ask ChatGPT to help you think of a business idea. But let's get rid of that old model of thinking and think about how can AI help your students come up with better problems to solve, problems that are really, really have the most critical, the most critical, that solutions can have the most critical impact, problems that face the world, problems that help people's lives. So it seems like using ChatGPT and the pitch challenge is a natural partnership.
Wonderful. Okay. Awesome, Eileen. Well, thanks so much for that. Okay, so very brief introduction about us and who we are. So teachingentrpreneurship.org, it's an organization that I and some other educators started to help make sure we are teaching real world experiential ways of teaching entrepreneurial skills. We do that with 2 mechanisms. One, we produce freely available content. So we produce a ton of lesson plans. We produce syllabi, exercises, resource guides like the one you're using here. That's all available for anybody who's teaching entrepreneurship in any capacity to go and use and have fun with. The other thing that we do is we produce a comprehensive curriculum. It's targeted for higher ed, and I know many of you are teaching in sort of K-12, but we're looking into ways that we might be able to sort of be accessible in high schools. So stay tuned, and if we find a way that it can be financially sustainable for everyone in the high school realm, then there might be an opportunity to leverage exec in our full curriculum in your classroom. But more about that later. What I want to talk about now is I want to transition from how we think about AI as a tool for instructors to introducing AI in a constructive way to your students. And so what I'm going to show you is a lesson plan you can use. Again, it's freely available. It's linked inside the document, but it's called the Birds and Bees of AI, Where Do Answers Come From? And we developed this lesson plan because we saw a lot of confusion amongst everyone, not just students, about like, where exactly is this information coming from? And a lot of folks rightfully thinking it was like Google, but it is fundamentally different. These large language models operate very differently than AI, than traditional search engines. And I want you to understand why and how that is, and I want your students to do that as well. So I'm going to walk you through the lesson as if we were in the classroom, and I'm just going to model it for you like you would use it with your students. And of course, you'll be able to change it as you see fit. But what you do is you tell your students, okay, I want you to understand exactly how AI is working so you know how you can make the best use of it. And the way to understand how an AI works is to pretend to be one. And so you're going to learn a brand new language the same way that an AI model would learn a brand new language. And it turns out most AI models don't know any language before you teach it something. So they don't know English before they've been trained on it. And so we're going to go through that training process here. So here's a brand new language filled with nonsense words. And I'm going to ask you to figure out which of these words are bird words, as in which of these words refer to birds in some way. And of course, as our nascent AI model, you have no clue which of these are bird words. So I'm going to do some training. And as I do this training, I want you to kind of like pay attention to what's happening inside your mind as you get trained on these bird words. So our first bird word is briz. Okay. Our second bird word is butyl. So you may already be getting a sense of like, what the training might be working a little bit, and you might even be able to guess what one of the next bird words is. I'll tell you that the next bird word is bast. All right, so there's one bird word left, and I just want to see if the training is working at all. Go ahead in the chat, type out what you think the last bird word is. And when you're doing this with your students, you can ask them to raise their hand. And it looks like pretty much everyone has got it. The last bird word is buell. So that's exactly right. Now, what's fascinating about this is you learn something new the same way AI learns something new. In fact, AI, they're all built on something called neural networks, and neural refers to the brain. So neural networks learn things the same way that we do, and they learn by pattern matching. So in this case, the pattern is relatively simple. The bird words all start with the letter B. Okay, so you got one pattern under your belt. Now let's go explore another pattern. Let's look for the cat words. So again, I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to show you some cat words, and then you see if you can figure out what the next cat word might be. Okay, so schlagat is our first cat word. Fisat is our second cat word. Now, there's one cat word left. So go ahead, let's do the same thing. Go ahead and guess, what's the third cat word? So I'm seeing a lot of rats, some rats, some toffs. All right, I see most folks saying the rat, and that's a very reasonable guess. They all end with the letters AT. It turns out, though, in this language, the rat doesn't refer to a cat. It refers to a cow. And this is a pretty common problem that happens with AI, especially when you've just started training it. You can be overly aggressive in the pattern matching. You can think, oh, I've got 2 examples or some limited examples, and start extrapolating what that means. And this can have real world implications. If you don't train your AI correctly, or if it has biased information, it will produce biased results. And in fact, I don't know if you know this, but rulers cause cancer. There was a study done that found that actually that if you use if you get exposed too long to rulers, that it will cause cancer. And the reason they came up with this analysis is there were some dermatologists who were training an AI model on how to diagnose moles using imaging. And so they fed it a bunch of images of malignant moles and a bunch of images with benign moles. And it turns out many of the malignant moles had some sort of measurement in it, some sort of measurement indicator to give a sense of scale. Whereas the benign moles, they weren't necessarily being measured. They might have just been random pictures of people's moles. And so the pattern that the AI took away was that, oh, when I see a measurement device, this must be a malignant mole. And so it came up with the correlation that rulers end up having a higher correlation to malignant moles, or rulers cause cancer. So anyway, so that's just a real world example of how training your AI, if you don't do it right, you can get into trouble. So let's bring it back into our example here. And I'll ask you again. Okay, so we know LORAT is not the right answer. So go ahead and come up with your third your third cat word and throw it in the chat. What do you think our last one is? Okay, I'm getting a couple in for rat. Anybody? Okay, so we look like we've got it. And I'd say you were right, at least according to my made-up rules. That is the third cat word, rat. All right, so there's another pattern here. The pattern for cat word is the word must have the same letter in a row twice, so double letters, and end with the at sound. Okay, so now we know two different patterns. We know the bird pattern is the word must start with B, and we know cat words must have double letters and end with the at sound. So with those two patterns, you are now a fully functional AI, and I'm going to ask you to generate something new, something brand new and novel that this language does not know of. So as the AI, what I want you to do is I want you to generate a brand new word for me that means flying cat. So using the patterns that you know, combine those patterns to create something brand new and type into the chat a word for flying cat. And what you're doing when you're doing this is the exact same thing that we were doing earlier when we asked ChatGPT to create a course outline for us or create an exercise. We were asking it to combine different patterns that it knew of in unique and novel ways. So it wasn't like Google where it was out finding, oh, here's an 11th grade entrepreneurship course outline with a 45-minute exercise on financial modeling that had a physical component to it. It says, oh, I know what these different patterns are, and I will combine them in unique and novel ways to give the user what it's asking for. So let's go take a look. So Bast Fasat, that's great. If it has to start with the B, so Borat is a great one. Borat is perfect. Okay, so y'all are getting it. You see exactly how this works. And this is the key difference between something like Google and a generative AI. So with Google, you can think of it like a dictionary. It's basically a really powerful database that has collected a bunch of what I'll call known information, just things that people have written available on the web, on the internet. And you can ask Google and say, hey, what information do you have about this topic? And it will point you to specific instances of people writing actual things that refer to the topic that you're asking. So like a dictionary, you can look something up and it will tell you what's inside there. Generative AI models like ChatGPT, you want to think of those very differently. Think of them as Lego builders, where they have a database of patterns, ostensibly, like they know a bunch of different patterns about the world, and they can combine those patterns in unique and novel ways. So in this case here, I've asked a generative AI to make me a Lego picture, a picture of a flying cat made out of Legos. And I'd be willing to bet no one has ever actually made a flying cat out of Legos before, but the AI can still generate something that looks like one because it knows what a cat looks like. It's got a cute face and a tail. It knows flying things have wings. And it knows that Lego pictures of things made out of Lego look blocky and have those little dots on top. And so it's able to generate those and combine those patterns to create something new and novel. Okay. So now that we know like how AI works, you can talk to your students about some of the challenges that are out there. So will AI take our jobs as educators, as students? At least in my opinion, the answer is firmly no. But it will fundamentally change our jobs as entrepreneurs, as educators. It will change our jobs, in my opinion. Like calculators changed math, like AI will change entrepreneurship. So as Eileen was mentioning, like the idea of like, oh, you can't use AI because we're trying to come up with, human-based pitches. Well, the truth is entrepreneurs I know, including myself, and virtually everyone out there is readily taking advantage of AI right now to help us improve with our idea generation, our solution ideation, our financial modeling. So these are all tools that can help us do more and do more quickly. And so it's important that we embrace these things and not be afraid of them. It's very similar to the internet. Like back when the internet was a thing, there was a lot of concern like, oh, hey, are students going to just copy things that they find online? Or is it going to help improve the way that they do work? And we adapted to the internet just like we adapted to encyclopedias and just like we will for AI. All right, so will students use AI to complete assignments? Yes. Whether you're ready for it or not, they're going to use it. And in fact, we're going to be encouraging students to use AI, just like we encourage them to use computers and use the internet. It's a tool at their disposal. So we need to adapt our classrooms and our assignments to take this into account. So here are some suggestions on ways to adapt your assignments. So make your assignments personal. So no more write me a 5-paragraph essay on the grapes of wrath and what it had to do with, whatever topic. Make it personal to them. Say, connect it to a personal experience you've had in your own life and tell me what themes resonate and why. Another alternative is to convert your written assignments into short and maybe even video presentations. So there's a lot more that's being done right now communicating in video, if you see TikTok or Instagram, than there are in like long form written responses. So that's not to say that writing isn't important. It is. But especially in the entrepreneurship context, if you're not teaching a writing class, I do a lot more presentations as an entrepreneur than I do long form writing. So again, you can have a balance, but consider can you help your students learn a new skill by emphasizing presentations or videos over written assignments if necessary. And then of course, if you do have them do written assignments, you can ask them to show their changes. You can have them write up a doc in Word or Google, and then have them show their changes and their iterations over time. Okay, so the last challenge I want to talk about is, will artificial intelligence lie to you? The answer is absolutely 100% yes. Artificial intelligence will lie to you because it doesn't know what's real and what's not. Again, it only knows the patterns it's learned. And so when I ask it to give me that cat Lego image, it doesn't know whether that exists or not. It just simply says, oh, okay, well, you want a cat Lego image. Well, I can generate that for you. And it does. So this form of lying is not intentional. It's called hallucinations. It's where it thinks it knows the right answer and it will present you the best information it has, but it does not know whether it's accurate or not. And just sort of in the chat, give me a yes or a no whether or not you've ever experienced a hallucination from ChatGPT so far. So go ahead and throw that into chat if you have or if you haven't, and then we'll get a sense of if everyone has experience. No, yeses. Well, it turns out that you all have experience with hallucinations. Because those quotes at the beginning, remember when I showed you those? Those are all lies. 100% fabrications, courtesy of ChatGPT. Now, I did not know that they were lies when I asked ChatGPT for them. I said, hey, give me some quotes of famous people who were scared about innovation, and it generated a bunch of great quotes. And then I picked these 3. And it was only when I was fact checking and just started going through and making sure that the information I got from ChatGPT was correct, did I find out that these were all lies. So ChatGPT, it knows what a famous person might look like, or in terms of the context of a quote. It knows what a great quote would sound like, and it knows how to, what someone afraid of disruption might say. And so it generated these amazing incorrect quotes for me. So this is a great example of something to show your students to say, like, if you need something factually based, do not use ChatGPT because it does not know what is real and what is not real. So if you are doing calculus, if you are paying your taxes, if you're asking for legal advice, if you're doing chemical equations, anything that needs to be correct, don't use ChatGPT. I can't attest to the other AI models out there, but certainly don't use it because it just doesn't know if it's lying. But there are some great places that you can use ChatGPT. So for students, idea generation. So you'll see this in the document that we sent you, the PDF. We've got lots of prompts in there for your students, including how to use AI to come up with ideas. In particular, how to help it come up with prompts for problems that student may be uniquely suited to solve. So whenever we're doing creative brainstorming, AI is an incredible tool to use. Customer interviewing. So we use AI in our curriculum as we can actually have the AI impersonate a customer that we want our students to interview. And then the students can have a back and forth conversation. So in our platform, there's actually an audio component to it where the students speak their questions out loud and the AI responds back. But just for free, you can have your students type in questions to the AI and say, hey, AI, I want you to be a dog owner. And I'm going to ask you some questions to practice my customer interviewing, respond as a customer would. And then they can type in their questions, like, what's the biggest challenge you have as a dog owner? And they can have a full conversation. So it's awesome for that. Financial modeling, personal finance, you can ask it to help you come up with different like cost estimates. Again, they won't be right, but they'll be a starting point, something to go play around with. And then finally, MVP development. There's a link in the document, the PDF, to a tool called Mixo. And Mixo is an incredible site, mixo.io. You just give it a one-sentence description of your product or service, and it will generate a full landing page for you. So it will have great marketing copy, it will have great stock photos, and it will be able to test demand for the product or service your students want to sell. So in 60 seconds, they can have something created. So there's a ton of amazing benefits for AI for students. And of course, for you, we talked about all the course prep that you can use, but you can also do research. Now, I want to be very clear here. ChatGPT will lie to you about research. I think they've made some recent changes, some improvements, but there are tools specifically built. Again, you can find it in the document that we included that will help you find actual research. So if you are doing any sort of research topic or you want to know about research papers, you can use AI tools to go find those research papers. All right, my friends. So I'm going to recap our session here, and then we're going to have plenty of time for questions. So I'd love to hear your questions. If you've got any, go ahead, throw them into chat, and then we'll queue them up, and then we'll answer them. But just to recap, takeaways from today, you're going to get that AI guide for entrepreneurship educators. So it's going to have all of the prompts and everything we talked about, including prompts for you, prompts for your students. It's going to have a list of AI tools that you and your students can use. It's going to have the link to the pitch challenge, so you can play around with that as well. It's going to have the lesson plan that I showed you, the birds and bees. It's going to have a link to the detailed information about that. So let me just kind of like show you all that real quick. So just so you know, so here are the sample prompts. Here's the pitch challenge. Here are all the prompts that your students can use to help prepare them for the pitch challenge. Here's that birds and the bee lessons plan. Here are the different tools that are out there. Here's Bing Chat. This is the alternative to the ChatGPT. So if it's okay with your school and they haven't blocked Bing, then you can use it through Bing. And then here's some different lessons that you can use when integrating AI into your lessons. Okay. And then the last thing I'll mention is that full comprehensive curriculum that we have that teaches entrepreneurship skills, a number of entrepreneurship skills. So including how to use AI, but everything from, growth mindset to problem storming, idea generation, design thinking, MVP and prototypes, customer discovery interviews, MVP development, experiment design, all that kind of stuff. So we teach all of that kind of stuff. and a flexible structure. So again, it's optimized for higher ed. So in their context, 7 to 15 weeks, but we have a number of high schools that use Exec throughout the entire year. We have integration with the 4 major higher ed learning management systems. If there's enough interest and demand, then we'll also be adding support for Google Classroom, but we'll see if that happens. You get to do attendance tracking. You also get a virtual AI assessment. This is super, super cool. So once you get a little more advanced in your use of AI, you can start doing things like, here's some sample feedback. You type in like, and here's some sample feedback from a student's essay, and then you give it the essay. And then you say, grade the following on these criteria, and you feed it into ChatGPT, and it will go in, it will assess it for you. And so you can actually get help with assessment from tools like ChatGPT, and we are implementing this at scale. So our curriculum doesn't use any quizzes. We're about skill acquisition, and we firmly believe you don't acquire skills through multiple choice tests. So, but we do have a lot of reflection that students do, personal reflection. And so we are training our AI to be able to assess different student responses, not necessarily that it would write directly back to students, but to give you hints as instructors which student assignments need the most attention and why, so that you can sort of focus your time on those. All right, and then this is all available for less than a textbook. So, but we can talk about that later. If you want to look, take a look at a preview Exec, you can find it at teachinge.org. All right, with that, that's all I have in terms of structured experience, but I am happy to show you or answer any other questions, show you around any other cool tools that you're interested in seeing. So yeah, so Eileen, if there are any questions that have come up so far that we want to do a little back and forth about, I am happy to.
Unmute myself. Thank you. There are some questions. We've been collecting them, and we've been looking at the number of people that have been inquiring about this. Who owns what's created in ChatGPT?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And I won't claim to know the answer because I feel like it's a little muddled at the moment. Because there's a lot of people who are upset that these models have been trained on information that they own. So reading books and reading things that have been published online. And so there's a bit of a question about like, okay, if these were generated and they were inspired by someone else's work and then generated by the AI, but you are the one who put the prompt in, like who owns it? Yeah, I don't know. If anyone else has some answers to this, and if this is settled, then let me know. But I'd say right now it's a bit questionable about who technically owns it. I certainly would not take anything straight from ChatGPT and take it to the patent office and claim that I owned it. But I am very comfortable with using it as inspiration, like any other resource that I would find, as long as it's not wholly from ChatGPT and I put my distinct stamp on it. I feel comfortable owning it, but it's a fair question. And I wouldn't go to court on it just yet.
What's the most creative thing you've seen or heard about that was created by ChatGPT? I mean, are we going to see new breakthrough innovations from ChatGPT, or is it really giving us some modifications?
Okay, so yeah, I've got multiple ideas. One is you see a lot of party tricks right now. Like we're sort of in party trick phase of like, oh, hey, it can write a song that sounds like Dr. Seuss or something like that. And it's like, oh, these are sort of novel. What we tried to show you today are like real practical use cases. And then in terms of like where we're headed, I mean, if there's interest, I can show you this AI model where there's this customer interviewing thing that we've built out. This is an example of like what feels like real innovation, where we're not just like wrapping the AI prompt in feeding it specific prompts, we're actually using it to teach genuine skills. Like you literally can have a conversation with a fictitious but very realistic customer and teach skills that way. So if there's interest in saying that, I can demo it, but like that's an example of like, okay, this is what real innovation could look like. But then it's not hard to think about the next step, which is taking these pieces that we've talked about, but we can do real-time assessment on students' work. And that interviewing tool I talked about, not only does it imitate the student, the interviewee, it will give the student feedback on what it asked well and what it didn't ask well. And so you can imagine AI becoming a personal tutor for students, where like if they're trying to learn anything, the AI can understand, okay, here's what I need to teach you, here's what you understand so far. You can give it formative assessments, can give it feedback over time. And we can like now, instead of like us being instructors, we're lecturing everyone at the same time on the same topic, we can be a facilitator helping to guide individual personalized learning, like at scale. Like this is super cool. Super amazing.
Right. That is very innovative. In fields like medicine, though, or technology innovation, is that going to come out of ChatGPT, or is it too soon to know?
Oh, those are really good questions. I don't think
beyond the scope.
I think the answer is obviously yes. We're going to see huge innovations, but I won't be able to speak on them well. But other than say yes, absolutely, 100%. There's going to be giant innovations in a number of different spaces.
Here's another really good one. Will it diminish our students and ultimately everyone's skills using ChatGPT? Will it diminish our willingness to be patient, our willingness to ponder, to sit with problems or challenges?
I love this question, and it's super interesting. And I do think it will fundamentally change the way our brains are wired. And I can say this from a scientific perspective. There was a study done about the use of GPS, sort of in long-term longitudinal study about people using GPS. And what it found is over time, I think it was people's like spatial recognition. I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was a definitive change in the gray matter in people's brains after they had been using GPS for a long time, because they simply stopped using the part of their brain that had to visualize things. I have little doubt that the same thing will happen with AI, that there are things. So I'm a software engineer, like a developer, and I find myself just it's so much easier just to ask ChatGPT to write code for me and to refine it than it is to write the code myself. And so like that skill set, I feel like, oh, that may diminish in myself. And so, yes, it will diminish. And GPS means that we get where we're going much, much faster than we ever did, including like traffic routing, dynamic traffic routing. And I don't write in cursive very much anymore. And I've lost that skill for sure, my, fine motor skills. So I feel like the set of skills that we will need will also evolve. So is it ultimately good or bad for human species? I don't know, but from what we've seen so far, all the innovations we've had so far, I feel like we will adapt, and as we need more cognitive skills, as they present the need for that we will set up solutions to go build those cognitive skills, including having an AI teach us those things.
There was a whole side conversation going on in the chat about bias and discrimination and how AI can pick up on that, especially if you put some things in that are very highly based on opinion and bias.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of like when I do that birds and the bees lesson, that's why I sort of mention that, because that is a concern. Whatever your view of the current institutions and structures that we have in our current society, the way that those have been replicated online is what our current models have been trained on. And so if you think the current structures that we have in society are great and working perfectly, then you may find no bias at all in ChatGPT. If you feel like these are not optimal or ideal, then you may find that there is some bias in ChatGPT. And so this is something that collectively as a society, we will need to reckon with and recognize that how we train our AI will determine the type of responses it produces.
Okay. There were a number of questions, and I'm not sure if you want to let us behind your magic here about how you've created this really stylized and I would say unique approach to presentations with your the slides and yourself in them.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
didn't want
happy
to
to.
ignore that because there were quite a number of questions about that.
Yeah, no. I'm happy to. We have a full blog post that we've written up. So virtually everything we do is free, open book. Like just hey, take it, use it, go crazy. We'll find it for you, and I'll ask someone on our team. They'll put a link in the chat on how to actually do this stuff and have the slides and have your face move around and do video and browser and all that kind of stuff. It does take a little bit of practice, and it takes some familiarity with tech skills. But there are also some less complex tools out there as well. So look for that in the chat. And yeah, if I don't see it, Federico, do you happen to have that? I'll try and find it.
Yeah, I will share it soon.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Okay, so it'll show up here shortly.
A question about demoing the interviewing technique. I don't know how long that would take.
Oh yeah, that doesn't take
pull up
and
and reference the name of the resource.
Sure.
I know that it's in the exec curriculum.
Okay, so this is part of our exec curriculum. So exec stands for Experiential Entrepreneurship Curriculum. It's that big, sort of comprehensive set of exercises. And then I'm just going to do this so everyone can see me big. So this is one of our assignments where we have students actually practice interviewing someone. And here they're going to describe who it is they want to interview. So we can change this. So I have dog owner, but like I can just change this to anything. So it's a cat owner. Let's continue. Who is scared and nervous? They leave the house. They are scared. Their cat will run away. Maybe it's and I want to where do I want to interview them? At a cat cafe. Let's say that. Okay. So then our AI will generate 5 different potential customers they can interview. Again, these are all fabricated personalities, but like the student gets to pick one and say, okay, I want to talk to Oliver. So then the exercise gives students a heads up on what to ask. So good questions to ask, bad questions to ask, things to avoid, basic good, common interviewing hygiene and technique. And then it gives them a layout for the actual questions that they should be asking. And then they can go and have this real conversation. And I'll turn up my volume here. I'm not sure if it's going to come through. Oops, the wrong one. Okay, but you'll tell me in the chat if it works. But I can hit this record button and I can have a conversation with this customer. So I can say, thanks so much for taking the time to chat today. I would love to hear, what are your biggest challenges as a cat owner? And then once I finish asking my question, you can see that it's written down my question. I can just hit send, or I can edit it as I need to.
The cat owner is dealing with their hair everywhere. It seems like no matter how much I clean, there's always a new furball waiting for me. But it's a small price to pay for the joy they bring into my life.
And we all able to hear that? Just give me a thumbs up or something in the chat if you're able to hear that. Okay.
Yes.
So we can have a real conversation. I can ask it stories like, when's the last time you had a challenge with fur balls, and what sort of emotions come up for you when you run into that situation?
Just last week, I found a massive furball under the couch. It was frustrating to clean up, but I couldn't help feeling a mix of annoyance and amusement. I mean, how can something so small shed so much fur? It's a reminder of the quirky and sometimes messy nature of having a cat.
Okay, so you can see like it comes up with real, genuine stories. It has emotions. And like I said, we actually can give student feedback on like the quality of questions they ask. So if I ask a bad question, I say, thanks for the story. Our team is working on a smart cat collar that uses GPS to track where your cat goes in case it ever runs away and gets lost. Is that something you would buy?
Absolutely. I would definitely be interested in a smart cat collar with GPS tracking. It would give me peace of mind knowing that I can easily locate my cat if they ever wander off or get lost.
Okay, so this is a classic customer response. A customer will lie right to your face if you ever ask them if they would do something in the future, like buy your product. And so we want the customer to do that. But then when your student clicks, I finished my interview, then we'll go through and we'll analyze their questions. And in this case, we said, hey, out of the 3 questions you asked, 2 of them effectively find insight or knowledge, while 1 does not. And it calls out that this question, this last question, this question is more about product and potential purchase rather than uncovering insights about the interviewee. So it knows exactly like what are good questions or what are bad questions, and give students feedback. So when we talk about like next level AI, we're getting above party tricks. This is really integrated in education and helping students sort of improve, gain skills, and then iterate and improve upon them. So thanks for whoever asked to see it, because I love showing this stuff off. It's super fun.
One more question for you about how you ask your students to indicate if they've used AI in the exercise, or do you not require any attribution? I know our school is struggling with that, and there are sort of departmental policies in English more so than some of the other departments.
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. To be perfectly frank, we don't require any attribution at all. It's also in part because like we are very explicit about when we want AI to be used, which is like anytime you want. And we implemented those strategies where I talked about everything is super personal. So it's more work for students to use AI when they're using our tools and curriculum than it is to just write it themselves. And then we do a lot of video presentations and stuff like that. So for us, it's not particularly applicable. Now, in terms of like general advice, like, I don't know, do we ask students like, cite when you used Grammarly because it helped you with your grammar, cite when you used a spell checker, cite when you use, this information. So ultimately, like in terms of skill set, like where do we see this going in the future? I don't think citing AI is a particularly useful skill to help students develop. If you want them to sort of check a box, say I used AI to generate this, then like understandable. But again, as a tool, like we don't ask students to necessarily, maybe you do, maybe in certain contexts, you ask students to cite every website that they draw information from. In that case, yeah, maybe that would be consistent. But it seems too pervasive to not be a tool that we assume and encourage our students to use whenever they can.
That makes sense. That makes sense to me. And in the beginning, I think spell check, if you can remember when spell check was new, and certainly certain kinds of calculations that used to be done by hand that are no longer.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
I'd invite anyone else who wants to raise their hand. I think we might have just a couple more minutes for questions. Those were the ones that we were able to capture from the chat.
Great. Well, and I'll say that there will be a recording of this afterwards. And if, Eileen, it's sort of your call, but to the extent that people are comfortable, like sharing the recording with the powers that be, or at least certain snippets to say like, hey,
absolutely,
like,
open,
this shouldn't be blocked
absolutely.
inside our schools. Like, yeah, I would fully propose that we need to be moving beyond the scared of AI phase and into the how do we leverage AI phase.
We're with you on that. We're with you on that. Okay, I want to thank you, Justin, for the fun, engaging time that we passed the 90 minutes here. I told everybody that it was going to be super fun and interactive and the time would go by quickly.
I saw a hand up, Eileen. I thought Mustafa had his hand up for a question when you asked about questions.
Got it. Mustafa, would you want to unmute yourself?
Yes, a very quick question. Any uses I've seen from ChatGPT, and especially STEM education, they are more or less like some of the examples you gave. Could you come up with a much more creative and innovative way of using ChatGPT in, let's say, math education, besides being a tutor, besides developing a lesson plan, but something that really changes the whole spectrum of teaching math?
Oh, interesting. I think not being a math teacher myself, well, okay, so here's the way I would think about it. I would think about like what's the biggest challenge I have teaching math? So maybe Mustafa, maybe you can tell me like what's a challenge that you have with math, either with a specific subject or with students' relationship to that subject in terms of like a skill that's missing.
I would say motivation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so motivation. So it turns out motivation has nothing to do with math, right? It has everything to do with, like, at least in my opinion, it's everything to do with the student's relationship to the subject. As in, do they see that it will be relevant to them? Do they understand intrinsically, like, oh, this is going to be, how will this help me? And I know we can talk, on and on again about like, oh yeah, algebra is going to help you in this instance or that instance, but like making it real, like that's something we literally have a lesson in our curriculum that's designed entirely to solve this motivation problem, because a lot of students take an entrepreneurship class because it's like required or it's just an elective. And the exercise is called Pilot Your Purpose. And it's helping students understand like what are their skills that they have, what are the interests they have, and where do they want to make an impact. And we do use AI to help them sort of generate like different ideas and combinations of skills and interests and impact that they want to have, and combine those in unique and novel ways. But connecting this back to math is like, if you can do the same thing, if you can say, hey, what do you want to do in college, or what do you want to do in, as a career? And then talk about like, okay, how can we leverage, how will math help me in these, achieve these things? Then that's would be my direction to head. And then you can use AI as a sort of a guide to that process, as in, okay, the person wants to do makeup tutorials and wants to be an Instagram influencer. So maybe AI can help say, hey, what are some types of math that this person would benefit from learning most to become an influencer, a makeup tutorial influencer? And there's going to be a lot about, obviously like fractions. They're going to have to do a lot of percentages. They're going to do affiliate sales. There's going to be, so that would be my gut, is like, figure out what motivates them, what's intrinsically interesting to them, and then maybe use AI to help connect the dots between those two things. And then maybe ask AI to help, like, okay, make a lesson that is specific to someone who wants to go do this career path, and then integrate math concepts into it. So that would be my goal. So as a general framework, it's like, what problem am I trying to solve? And then how can I use AI creatively to help me solve that problem? But I wouldn't say that there's like just a generic, like, hey, change how education is done using AI. I don't think we're quite there yet.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Question about game design.
Yeah, I think I saw that one, just like asking, like, how do you have it create a game? I mean, you can just ask it, like, create a game for me. You can put requirements onto it. It's like, hey, create a game that's for 4 players that lasts this long, and it doesn't cost me more than, X number of dollars to create. And it will come up with a game. Most of the stuff that like ChatGPT creates, in my opinion, is sort of like solid B. It's not amazing. It's not necessarily going to win prizes, but it's a good starting point for you to play around with. If you go to the higher levels, like to 4.0, you can actually have it create software, like create computer games for you. They're not B, they're D level, but you can have it actually create video games for you. But yeah, we'll get to that space that it will be able to start creating more games like that. But yeah, just try around, just play around, ask it what it can do right now.
Excellent.
I had a quick question. Yeah, I just want to know if you had any idea of, I guess, when does updates carry out for ChatGPT? Because like I put in the chat like a while ago, like I asked it, just for kicks and giggles a couple of weeks ago, like, hey, what is the difference between ChatGPT 3 and ChatGPT 4? And it's like the only thing that exists is ChatGPT 3. I was like, well, what is this, the subscription, ChatGPT plus subscription? Because I'm literally looking at it. It's like, hey, this doesn't exist, based on my knowledge from September 2021.
Right.
So how often does this does a database update for ChatGPT, if you know?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So yeah, for as far as I know, the training all happened by basically like consuming everything on the web in September, I think, of 2021. The model is still evolving. They're making changes to the model, like the way the model works with that data, but the data has remained the same in terms of the training data. So it will not know of anything past September 2021. I don't know when that will be changing or if it will be changing at all. But I imagine that we're gonna, like, I imagine Bard, Google's version, is probably using some more updated information. And so ChatGPT is changing the way it model works pretty frequently, I think every couple of weeks, but the data it is trained on, as far as I know, is stagnant, and I don't know when it will be changing.
The Medicare annual enrollment period.
Thank you.
Good question.
Yeah.
Good question. Good question. Also just came in. Is this a learning? Does it learn from the conversation that you're having or a series of conversations that you have with ChatGPT?
Yeah, great question. And again, I can't speak specifically to the inner workings of this model, but my understanding is it will not learn by you giving it more information. So if you tell it, no, there is a ChatGPT 4, it may agree with you in the time being, but it's not going to go regurgitate that to someone else. So I don't think someone can pollute the training data with incorrect data now, or can improve the training data by giving it more information. What I believe they are improving all the time is they are seeing the ways that we interact with the model and making changes based on that. So as far as I know, like the whole citation thing, like it used to be, you could ask ChatGPT, like, give me a research paper that points to, smoking being able to cause people to fly. And like, it would like generate like, oh, here's a study. And it would like give you a name of a study and even give you a link to it. And that would all be fabrication, just hallucinations. I believe that they are working on things like that. We're saying like, I just don't know. Like, I don't know about research information. And so as they see us interact with it, they are changing the way the model interacts. Yeah, but that's the only learning that I know of so far.
Fantastic. Fantastic. These are great questions. And I think we learned a tremendous amount from the questions and answers as well in the last 20 minutes or so. Again, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, thanks for the wonderful questions. It's super fun to ask them and answer them. Yeah, this is a brave new world we're all entering. So I appreciate y'all participating and asking your questions.
And I have to say, Justin, our relationship with you is ongoing. We know that you're at the forefront of innovation and understanding innovation and teaching with innovation. So many people have asked, how can they get the curriculum, the exact curriculum for their high schools or parts of the curriculum? So we're going to stay in touch. And for our audience here of attendees, you can count on us to try to do everything we can to make this amazing content accessible for you and the students that you teach.
Well, thank you, Eileen. We're really excited to go work and learn more about the high school space. Yeah, so this is a really great opportunity to get and hang out with y'all.